Let's talk about measures of spread. After we investigated the measures of central tendency, the mean, median, and mode, we might have realized that we might need another statistic to explain how spread out the data is in a given data set. The first measure of spread that we talk about is the range, and the range is calculated by subtracting the minimum value of a data set from the maximum value of the data set. You may have participated in our candy graphing or our M&M activity, and we made dot plots. You subtracted the highest number of M&Ms of one color minus the smallest value of M&Ms. So for example, the max might have been 18 and the min might have been 7. So the range is 11. If you were interpreting that range, you could say the students in our class grabbed a variety of quantities of yellow M&Ms all within 11 M&Ms of each other. Box and whisker plots also can start to show us this idea of measure of spread. A box plot or box and whisker plot is a data display or a graphical representation showing the distribution of values. It contains the 5-number summary. The 5 numbers that you can see in a box and whisker plot are the minimum, the maximum, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, and the median of the box and whisker plot. So what's the lower quartile and what's the upper quartile? Well, the lower quartile is the median of the lower half of the numbers, and the upper quartile is the median of the upper half of the numbers. We can also talk about these measures of spread, the range, the max minus the min, but also the interquartile range, also known as the IQR, and it's the difference between the upper quartile and the lower quartile. More on that later. This is a nice image of a box and whisker plot. You can see there is a box, and then these lines on the edges of the box are called the whiskers. So if you were looking at the 5-number summary from left to right, there's the min, that's the minimum value. That's Q1, also known as the lower quartile, which is the median of the lower half of the data. This is the median. We could call it Q2 because it is the median of the data. And then we have the upper quartile, Q3, which is the median of the upper half of the data, and then we have the maximum. If you were looking at the IQR, or the interquartile range, that is the box area of the box and whisker plot. We'll talk more about this later, but this is how a box and whisker plot shows your data. From the min to Q1, that contains 25% of your data, hence the idea of calling them quartiles or quarters. It splits it into 4 pieces, equally distributed. So there's 25% of your data between min and Q1. There's 25% of your data between Q1 and the median. 25% of your data lies from the median to Q3, and 25% of your data lies from Q3 to the maximum. Now, don't be fooled by this data display and think that your box and whisker plot will always look perfect like this. It rarely does. You will notice that we do some box and whisker plots where this is much more spread out, which is what the box and whisker plot is trying to show you. You could do a foldable on a box and whisker plot. It's nice if we use some kinesthetic activities, so you could get your students up and say, hold your left arm out. The minimum value would be right there on your hand. Then if you bend your arm and touch your shoulder, that would be the lower quartile. If you continue, then the median would be your hands together. The upper quartile would be your hand on your right shoulder. And then the maximum would be your hand outstretched. So that might be a nice physical way for you to remind yourself of a box and whisker plot. We could see box and whisker plots in real life. There's a link here that talks about the Great Barrier Reef. So there's a study published in 2012 tracking the coral coverage over a period of 27 years. And they use a variety of data displays, but they use some box and whisker plots. Here's box and whisker plots over all of these years. So each one of these is its own box and whisker plot, but they lined them all up so you could see what's happening to the coral coverage over time. Notice that this is 1985, and then we go all the way up here, and this would be 2012. All right, I hope this helped you see some measures of spread, and we'll continue our discussion of box and whisker plots.